£1 billion. £1 billion is a number that hopefully got your attention. Now, this is a number which is a British finance business made in just 9 months in extra revenue. Now, how did they do it? They chose a likable, wholesome, trustworthy female spokesperson to go to radio and television as an expert for their company. And the uniqueness was that the audience really loved her, they trusted her, and they bought from her. And that's £1 billion to be precise. So essentially, all of us have a unique opportunity to make an impact on the industry, to make a change, but also to make the massive amounts of money for our companies. And I feel that we talk today about innovation, AI, and probably everywhere where you go, people talk about AI. But the question is really, do you want AI to create your content, or do you want to create your own story? So you have 3 options. Number 1 is not to do anything. So all of us are driven and ambitious, so probably that's not an option. Number two is to do AI kind of driven transformation content generation, which again, many of the competitors do. So probably this is not what you want to do either. And number 3 is essentially to create your own story and to use an image for both yourself and for your company in terms of generating the revenues. Now, something which is very unusual about myself, similar to the speaker yesterday, is my background story of how I started the career. So originally, I come from a very simple background, as my first job was washing toilets at McDonald's. And the challenge I've had is I would come and wash toilets 8 hours a day for 30 pence, which is not a lot of money. So I wanted to get promoted, but I was completely invisible. And the challenge was I could not tell a story. Funnily, in Russia, when you want to get promoted from washing toilets to cooking the food, you have an exam. And part of it is telling a story how you make a burger, which I failed, which is how I didn't get the job. But I didn't give up, because I never give up. And I decided to become a waitress in TGI Fridays, which I'm sure you know as well. And I couldn't get a waitress position either, because they wanted me to tell the stories to the customers. I mean, it could have been a story to entertain them, to inspire them, to wow them. And this is not necessarily something which I was good at. I couldn't even sing a happy birthday song. So I got rejected for that as well. But what happened next is I carried on as a tenacious person. So I did get like a bachelor's and a couple of masters. And I came to apply to a job in the bank. And I went through kind of all the various interviews to the final one. And the very senior person, he asked me, as they typically do, what is your vision? What do you want to do in 10 years' time? So I said, I want to inspire, I want to be in Financial Times, I want to make a change in the industry. But the person, unfortunately, laughed and did not give me the job. So I carried on as a tenacious person, and today, like Rishi mentioned, I do quite a lot of television and radio, and I am featured in Financial Times. But what is really important is I don't do it as a marketing person, so I'm not speaking to you as part of marketing, I'm speaking to you as a person similar to you who works in technology. So my day-to-day job is strategy advice, senior advice to the boards, to the C-suite around data and technology, and all this inspiration and influence is something which I do kind of in addition to my day-to-day from the technology side. The reason I do it, and the reason I do it for the companies where I work, is because it gives them higher revenues, it gives them much more inclusive positioning in the market, but also it allows them to be more diverse and to have a more diverse voices in the market. Ultimately, we bring the new clients, we bring the new revenue streams, and this is something which drives the business. So I'm not doing it as a marketing person, I'm not doing it kind of for my own self-promotion, but it does drive the business. And what I learned throughout this whole journey from McDonald's to now is one fundamental thing. Nobody wants to talk to you when you clean the toilets, and everybody wants to talk to you when you're on television, on radio, and like in World Economic Forum. So something which I have been studying and something which I've learned is kind of three key things. And I'm going to go through them, and maybe when we go to the questions, we can go into more detail. But fundamentally, the first one is around the business, right? So ultimately, every single business, unless you're a personal security business, probably wants to be seen and heard and recognized and be online, be in the media, and be seen to the customers. So essentially, as I mentioned, it's really important that it's not just the MDs and not just the C-suite who kind of go on television, on radio, but also to make it more inclusive and more diverse, there are opportunities for the middle management and perhaps some of the junior staff, of course in line with the company policy. So I think what is important is if you look from the audience perspective, all of us are diverse as an audience. So they want to see the different faces, they want to see the different backgrounds in the media as the customers. And essentially, even if you look from the media perspective, what they want to see is the diverse profiles. So if you send the same spokesperson or the lineup of spokespeople that look very similar to what they tend to do, is you'll have to think more diversified and to have the different faces, because otherwise you won't get the interview with the media. Then the second lesson is more around how to drive the business at scale. So there are two fundamental forces that drive your business. Essentially, it's innovation, and we heard today so much about innovation, and I'm sure that's part of your day-to-day. And the second one is marketing. Now, again, I'm not positioning myself as a personal brand expert or as a marketing expert. I'm talking about marketing as a force to drive the business growth for technology. 98% of people hate marketing, which is why it's very difficult to do it. But people love entertainment. So as long as you can try to do marketing around technology, whether it's the transformation or the fraud or the compliance, but do it in a way which is more exciting. So it's more which makes people laugh or cry or like maybe shock perhaps as well. You'll be a more relatable brand. So for example, there is a story that was on national television and in the press. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was actually about me going to the sauna, but it had a technology angle to it, which is why it's relevant for us today. So I went into the sauna just to lose a couple of pounds, as we all do when we go to the sauna. But because there was a criminal, and the criminal took my cards and my phone, I came out 20,000 pounds lighter. And it's really tragic, and that's how the audience connects to this, because in a way everybody is shocked, how could this happen? But what I did, which is perhaps different, is turn the business into the business opportunities, turn the robbery into the business opportunities. So what I've done is, obviously there is an element of educating the public, so things like don't keep your phone next to your cards. But more importantly, looking at the things, the data and technology, how they transform the banks from the fraud perspective, and whether indeed you could tell the story from the customer perspective who perhaps suffered and was very upset about the fraud, but this is how technology can help support the banks and the customers. So what was really successful is that the banks, they saved on the payouts, and then also the customers ultimately, they were also more protected or feel more safe and secure in similar situations. And the reason I'm saying this is it's very important to try to connect the technology story to the ultimate, thing which is important to the public, which could be horrific or it could be entertaining. And the more you can find the hook, it's going to be more exciting and more memorable. And then there is the third part. So the third part is obviously, it's very important in the times of AI to stay trustworthy and to stay like really, personable, as we all want to be, and to stay human. So something which I see very much that has been successful for me personally is sharing the stories which can relate to the other human beings. So for example, we always talk about successes, but not everybody goes and talks about personal failures. And we've heard a talk today which was really touching. And this was something which was very inspirational to see. So something which I share, for example, is the stories from my career, from my childhood, but it's more because they are relatable to much broader audience. For example, I was brought up to be a housewife. So my grandmother really wanted me to get married. And she felt that if I do maths at university, I'll definitely get married. Because the ratio of guys to girls is 10-1. So essentially, I would go and as a tenacious person, I would do a bachelor's in maths. But I didn't get married. So my grandmother was disappointed. And then I did a second master's in maths. And again, I did not get married. And my grandmother was disappointed. Well, in fact, she was angry. And then the third thing is I did another master's and I still did not get married. And my grandmother was completely furious. So ultimately, I ended up, transforming the banks using data and technology. And now my grandmother is proud after many years. But I think the reason, if we take this, or if we take some of the stories which may have made the TED Talks, which you may have seen around technology, the reason is they become more relatable to the public. And again, you get much more kind of following and much more connection with either your customers or the broader audience. So I will leave you with one final thought. And the thought really, imagine if you had an opportunity to make a massive impact on the industry, or if you had an opportunity to do massive amounts of money for your business, what would you choose? Why choose if you can help both? I'm Alina Timofeyeva, and you've been awesome. Thank you.